Many athletes are superstitious in one way or another. Either have a pre-game ritual that they think tees them up for success on game day, or a favorite training partner, or whatever it is that they feel gives them the juju they need to be at their best. Some NFL players, however, have found themselves on the wrong side of the juju and fallen into a cursed existence.
I've lost my mojo!
So without further ado, let's take a look at 10 of the most cursed NFL players today. First up, we have one of the most talented but cursed players, former All-Pro defensive end J.J. Watt. During his peak years with the Houston Texans, Watt was one of the most fearsome players in the NFL. He had a run from 2012 to 2015 where he rattled off 4 straight All-Pro Pro Bowl seasons, during which he captured 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards. Now, unfortunately, he did so for a rather meh Texas franchise that, at its worst, was a dumpster fire, and at its best was a lock to get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. And some of those losses were beyond embarrassing, basically wasting the best years of Watt's career. Watt's cursed existence in the NFL didn't stop there either. The playoff losses became increasingly painful, like the 30-0 thrashing at the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs in the 2016 wildcard round. And then the injuries started to pile up. After playing every single game for the first 5 years of his career, he has only played a full season just twice in the 6 seasons since. And it isn't like he's just missing a game here or there. He has missed 42 games over that span. Then, to make matters worse, once he was finally healthy and his Texans had a lead in the playoffs, they went and blew it in an unbelievably embarrassing fashion. Houston had a 21-0 lead over the Chiefs at the end of the first quarter, and by the time the final whistle blew, they had somehow lost by 20 points. And apparently, his misfortune wasn't just tied to him being a member of the Houston Texans. In his lone year with the Arizona Cardinals, he again battled injuries, and his team utterly imploded after starting the year off 7-0. JJ isn't the only cursed edge rusher in the NFL these days either. Dee Ford knows that feeling very well. Ford was selected by the Kansas City Chiefs in the first round of the 2014 NFL Draft, and in the time since, his NFL journey has been littered with nefarious pitfalls. Despite being the 23rd overall pick, Ford was relegated to backup duties during his first couple of years in the league. In part because Kansas City decided to convert him from playing 4-3 defensive end, which was what he did at Auburn, to a 3-4 outside linebacker. Ford finally earned a starting job in 2016, and though he played fairly well, his time in the starting lineup dipped again the following season, as he suffered through a back injury. Then in 2018, Ford's curse took the national stage. His Kansas City Chiefs were right on the doorstep of a victory over Tom Brady and the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship game. They had a 28-24 lead with about a minute left. Casey's defense just needed one more stop. A stop that they thought they had when a pass deflected off the hands of Rob Gronkowski, falling helplessly into the grasps of Chiefs cornerback Charvarius Ward. The only problem? Ford had lined up in the neutral zone and was called for offsides on the play, negating the game-sealing interception. New England unsurprisingly capitalized on the opportunity and eventually took the contest and a Super Bowl berth right out of the Chiefs' hands. The Chiefs ended up trading Ford the following offseason, and he signed a 5-year extension with the Niners where he got a load of salt in the wound, as his former team ended up beating him in the Super Bowl the following year. Ouch. This is actually kind of like what happened to another first-round pick in that fateful 2014 draft, Brandon Cooks. For starters, Cooks played for New Orleans during one of the worst stretches the Saints had during the Sean Payton era. His 3 years in New Orleans capped off a stretch in which a perennial playoff contender had a losing record in 4 of 5 consecutive seasons. During that time, however, Cooks did prove himself to be a true pro. After getting limited burn his rookie year, he posted back-to-back 1,000-plus yard seasons. New Orleans was a franchise in flux, though, and tried to sell high on Cooks, flipping him in a 4th to New England for a 1st and 3rd during the 2017 offseason. Cooks continued to produce, finishing the year with 65 receptions for 1,082 yards and 7 touchdowns, and the team was successful, making it all the way to the Super Bowl. New England lost in dramatic fashion to Nick Foles and an underdog Eagles team, and Cooks' night ended early when he got rocked by Malcolm Jenkins early in the 2nd quarter. Finally on a contender, and bang, knocked out of the biggest game of his life. Tough draw. The following offseason, New England dealt Cooks to the Los Angeles Rams, who ended up losing to New England in the Super Bowl that very season. Cooks ultimately played 2 seasons in LA, before being shipped off to Houston ahead of the 2020 season. So here we are 2 years later, and now Los Angeles has also won a Super Bowl without Cooks. And his new team, the Texans, have found themselves embroiled in the nasty Deshaun Watson scandal while plummeting to the bottom of the league standings. It's kind of hard to believe that this guy isn't cursed. While we're on the subject of a guy whose cursed legacy was cemented against the New England Patriots, how about Matt Ryan? I mean, anyone who watched that 28-3 collapse knows this. His Falcons were regularly blowing leads in somewhat unthinkable ways, and yet they still found a way to take it to brand new heights. Most recently, he lost his best receiving target in back-to-back years, first for mental health sabbatical, then a bizarre gambling scandal. I guess it shouldn't come as a surprise that Matt Ryan has had some bad luck in the NFL though, as his career started in the shadows of the Michael Vick scandal. Can't wait to see what misfortunes come his way during year 1 in Indy. For his sake, I hope it goes better than it did for Carson Wentz, another cursed quarterback who tried to revive his career with the Colts. He tore his ACL in the midst of a near surefire MVP season. And to make matters worse, his replacement Nick Foles took Carson's first-place Philadelphia Eagles to Super Bowl glory, forever changing the narrative around Carson Wentz in Philly and really throughout the NFL. Then, when he finally got a shot in the playoffs with the Eagles, he almost immediately got knocked out of the game by a dirty hit from Jadeveon Clowney. Now, he's in Washington, D.C. with the Commanders. What could possibly go wrong? Sticking in the NFC East, it's hard to talk about curses without mentioning Dak Prescott, who routinely has found himself in inexplicable situations. In fact, it has been that way since the jump for Prescott. Even before he ever stepped on an NFL field, he had already lost millions of dollars by way of a viral fight in Panama Beach that affected his stock with NFL GMs. Prescott ended up falling to the 4th round of the draft, where Dallas scooped him up, and, well, we all know how that's gone. It has been nothing but freak injuries and playoff losses. Every single time it looks like Dallas is about to take a big step forward, something crazy happens, like hiring Mike McCarthy. I mean, that alone might have set Dak's career back in a big way. While we're talking about quarterbacks, let's visit the career of 2 other high draft picks who are undeniably cursed. 2016 first overall pick Jared Goff, and the 2nd overall pick the following year, Mitch Trubisky. Starting with the latter, Mitch Trubisky was drafted into a horrendous situation in Chicago. Yes, the Bears actually had a fairly decent roster, especially on the defensive side of the ball, but damn near all of that was offset by also having Matt Nagy drunk at the wheel, which all but ruined Mitch's time in Chicago. And to make matters worse, Nagy repeatedly threw Mitch under the bus, utterly refusing to take any responsibility for their floundering offense. The trouble followed him out of Chicago too. During his 1 year in Buffalo, the Bills suffered one of the most gut-wrenching playoff losses in recent memory, when Pat Mahomes led the Chiefs back from a 3-point deficit with just 13 seconds left on the clock. Then, the following offseason, he signed with the Steelers as a potential heir to Big Ben's throne, and it looked like he was finally gonna get a real chance to start again. That is, until Pittsburgh turned around and took Kenny Pickett in the 1st round of the draft. Now, once again, Mitch is between a rock and a hard place. He may still get a chance to start, but the situation screams lame duck. Goff similarly was drafted into a situation with a head coach that seemed primed to ruin his career. After all, Jeff Fisher has made a bit of a habit of it. Just ask Vince Young. Tragically for Goff, he ended up getting an oh-so-slim glimmer of hope when Sean McVay came to town and revamped that offense. They even made it to a Super Bowl together. But then, it all came crashing down for the young quarterback when McVay turned around and shipped Goff off to Detroit. And the salt in the wound for Jared, the Rams ended up winning a Super Bowl without him, while he toiled away in Detroit, where the rebuild never seems to stop. Now, not every cursed NFL player's hands are clean in their misfortune. Le'Veon Bell even admitted that he may have cursed himself when he decided to not play on the franchise tag for the Steelers, instead deciding to sit out the entire 2018 season. Bell set his number at $15 million, an astronomical total for a running back, and would not budge when the Steelers put a contract in front of him for $14.5. And his backup, James Conner, ended up performing very well in his absence. And once Bell was finally able to hit the open market, he quickly found that the demand for his services wasn't quite as strong as he had hoped. He ended up signing a contract with the New York Jets for way less annual value than Pittsburgh was offering. Not to mention all the money he cost himself by sitting out in 2018. To make matters worse, Bell's career then went into a tailspin. He and Jets head coach Adam Gase were never even close to being on the same page. Heck, they weren't even in the same book. And because of that, he was barely used in Gase's offense. The former All-Pro has now spent the last 2 seasons bouncing around rosters, seemingly unable to get more than a rotational role. For some added perspective to just how bad things have gotten for Bell, he is now slated to fight fellow NFL running back Adrian Peterson in a boxing match. Yeah, yikes. Lastly, we have another former star running back, Saquon Barkley, who found himself at the mercy of relentless misfortune after an extremely promising start to his career. Barkley had a monster rookie season for the Giants, rushing for 1,307 yards and 11 touchdowns and catching 91 passes for 721 yards and an additional 4 tutters. But his luck started to turn in 2019 when nagging injuries started to limit his availability and hamper his performance. Then, in 2020, his career hit the skids. He tore his ACL just 15 rushing attempts into the season. The following season, Barkley was a shell of himself. The former Rookie of the Year couldn't even top 600 rushing yards, in large part because he continued to battle reoccurring ankle injuries. Now, a career that once looked destined to end in Canton is very much in flux. Of course, there is always a chance that he bounces back. But with the hex that seems to have been put on the young running back, I definitely would not bet my life savings on it. But which NFL player do you think is the most cursed? Did we miss anyone? Join us in the comments section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.